Hospitality Meets is brought to you by RotaCloud, the simple workforce management software for hospitality teams. RotaCloud lets you create and share rotas, record attendance, and manage your team's annual leave, all in less time than it takes to make a brew. It can also make life easier for your staff, allowing them to check their rotas, request holiday, and even pick up extra shifts, all through the RotaCloud mobile app. Start your 30-day free trial today by visiting rotacloud.com/Phil and find out how much easier managing your team can be. Welcome to this special episode of Hospitality Meets with me, Phil Street. Today's guest is the brilliant Maya Gilbert, a hospitality lifer, dog lover, and the woman who walked 2,700 miles around the English coastline to raise money for hospitality action. This episode coincides with the launch of Walk for Wellbeing. It's funny, inspiring, and full of kindness. Let's just dive straight in. Hello and welcome to this special episode of Hospitality Meets with me, your host, Phil Street. Why is it special, I hear you ask? Well, sometimes a little story comes along that you just can't ignore. And so I am absolutely delighted to welcome to the show today, Maya Gilbert.
Hello, thank you for having me.
You're very, very welcome. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good today. Yesterday I was really quite hungover.
Oh,
After
really?
some,
And why would that be, Maya?
So on Saturday, I finished a 2,700-mile walk around the entire coast of England. So yes, today's Monday. So yesterday I was rather hungover after celebrating
Unwound.
the finish line. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no doubt, no doubt. And definitely worth celebrating. And massive congratulations, by the way.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, this is a story that I think has captivated a little bit of the hospitality industry, mainly through Hospitality Action, who you're very kindly raising funds and awareness for on doing this
Yeah.
challenge. But so we'll get into that in the fullness of discussion, of course. But
Mhm.
actually, you're a hospitality person, so I really just want to
Yeah.
kind of touch upon your journey a little bit, really, before we get into why you decided to, I don't know, subject yourself. Would that be the right way to?
Yeah, I think most people think I'm pretty crazy, but yeah, I've been in hospitality all of my working life, which started quite young. I lived in Spain when I was a teenager, and as a result of it, I didn't complete high school. I
Right.
was quite academic in England, but I went to Spain. I went into a Spanish speaking school, so I got put back a year. And then I failed that year, so I was repeating it for the third time. And there was actually no scope for me to finish high school with that timeline. The schooling system there is a little bit different. You get a maximum of 6 years to complete 4 years, but because of what had happened, it meant I wouldn't finish. So I decided to drop out of school at 15 and started working full time in hospitality. I acquired a fake ID from a website called fakeidentification.co.uk and picked up a bar
Shout
job.
out to them. Yeah.
Big ups. God knows if they're still going. Kudos to them if they are.
I mean, that's
Yeah,
one of
and
those websites that you hear and go, what do they do? What do they do? I can't imagine what they do.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it wasn't very good. It wasn't very realistic, but it was enough to make the Spanish bar owners that I worked for give me a job. So it worked, did the trick. And yeah, I worked in that job for 2 summers and then figured I should probably figure out my next steps. I was 17 by that point, and I came back to England to do a professional cookery apprenticeship with the De Vere Academy, which was a great opportunity. It was like a fast track apprenticeship. So it was level 2 MBQ, and rather than it taking 12 months, it took 3, and it was like a quite intensive course. So I did 3 days a week in a kitchen and 2 days a week in the college, and came out of the back of that as a qualified chef. And yeah, I did chefing for like just under 3 years. So that was the kind of my introduction to the industry, and really where like my passion for food and drink came from. So
Right.
yeah, I was in as a chef I went from the first place that I got my job after my MBQ into like a country kind of gastro style pub. And then after a few years working in that setting, decided it wasn't really for me. I'm very like chatty, people focused, and wanted to move back front of house. So after a minor breakdown in the bin area one day, I went into my general manager and said, I don't want to do it anymore. I don't know what to do. And he went, okay, that's fine. We'll train you front of house. into management position. I've got an assistant manager job that's just opened up. We can train you into that." And I was like, "Yes, please." And
Wow. So emotional blackmail does work then.
yeah.
Yeah.
But we all had really good working relationships, and he's actually somebody who has been like one of my good industry pals now for like 12 years. He interviewed me for the chef's job rather than the head chef, which is quite, not the ordinary.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, I mean, we all were really tight in that venue at the time, so I definitely felt like I could go to him. And yeah, he gave me the opportunity to go into management at the age of 20, which was huge for me and was a massive pivotal moment for the rest of my career trajectory. So yeah, always very grateful to him, and he's always helped me in any hour of need that I've had. If I've needed to pick up hours, or yeah, just to lend an ear, he's always been there for me. So yeah, big shout out to
Yeah.
him, Steve Davis from Chester.
Wicked.
He's my guy.
I'm all for the shout out, and I was jesting about the emotional blackmail, obviously, but I mean, there's a couple of things there. I mean, it's important that I suppose we highlight the fact that these things happen. They absolutely happen when pressure is high, and you're maybe doing something that you don't feel is really you anymore as well.
Yeah,
But
I think like for me with chefing, I love to cook and I love food, and that is really what always drove my passion in the industry. However, cooking at home and for friends and for dinner parties is like such a different experience to being a chef
mhm,
in such a high pressure situation. Now, I think I was pretty good at it, and I was, but what kind of happened organically was I became more of like more of a kitchen manager than a chef. So I would do all the stock takes. I would be the one that ran the pass in busy services because I'm very well organized and I can like think about so many things at once. But I felt like the actual cooking side of it, I wasn't getting the most out of that. So yeah, it wasn't for me. I think that chefing is for a very specific type of person, and it's a really difficult, high pressure environment, but it's a really rewarding one for the right person. For me, I felt a little bit restricted in how I could progress because all I wanted really was to lead a team or problem solve, and for me like front of house just made more sense for that.
yeah, yeah. I think also it also kind of highlights the importance of having a support structure around you, right? Whereby, okay, as you described it, you had a breakdown in the bins area, but you were able to turn to somebody in that moment and say,
Yeah,
look, I'm floundering here. I don't really, this is not what I want to do. I think I want to do this. And somebody was there to listen, and somebody was then
yeah,
able to change your path. Sometimes you can't do it on
yeah.
your own.
No, definitely not. And without, I think that conversation with Steve at the time, I was thinking I'm just going to have to leave the industry. I didn't see a different route because obviously I trained as a chef and I didn't understand the career opportunities from a front of house perspective. So yeah, to have him there to sort of guide me and help, like I say, kind of pivot my career choice, it was yeah, really really beneficial to have that kind of mentorship.
Yeah. Also highlights the importance of conversation, right? I mean, you can suffer in silence, which sounds like you maybe were doing for a while, but actually, when you open up and you talk to somebody about stuff, then change can happen for the better.
Yes, exactly.
So you jumped on the assistant manager bandwagon, as it were, and started going
Yes.
down that path. And how did it all kind of play out from there?
So I went into a 6 month training program so I was trainee assistant manager and then assistant manager. I left that position around Christmas time. The manager, Steve, had actually moved on, and I didn't I had nothing against the new management. We just didn't like click in the same way. And with me still being young, I was still living in my hometown and I wanted to like move to a city and find sort of different places to start to learn and hone my craft and stuff. So yeah, I moved to a restaurant in Chester, which was like a small independent casual fine dining restaurant that I actually went into on Christmas Eve for a meal, and I was like, I'm going to work here.
Really?
And yeah, I just was like, yeah, this is my vibe, this is my place. Like, I'm going to work here. So I spoke to the manager who was working that night and said I'd like a job, and he said we don't really have anything at the moment, but maybe bring your CV in the new year. And let's see what we can do. And I was like, okay. So on the 2nd of January, I took my CV in and told him that I'd like a job again. He again said, oh, we don't really have anything, but like, I'll read your CV and we'll get back to you. I was like, okay. So I followed it up with an email the next day and relentlessly. And then he said, listen, we don't have anything, but
I've
I've got
created
a
a job
few.
for you just to shut you up.
Basically, yeah. I've got a few of the team doing like going on holiday. And so you could cover some holidays, just a part-time position to begin with. I was like, yeah, I'll take it, fine. So I did that alongside a couple of other just like ad hoc part-time, just disco shifts really. And after a few weeks, they offered me a full-time position. They created a role for me, which was great. And yeah, I ended up taking over the general manager position around a year later. And yeah, I loved that job. That was really like the point where I locked in on a career front of house. And I was
Right.
just like, no, this is me. I loved it. I lived and breathed it. The team, just, because I went from being assistant manager in quite a big pub group to this tiny independent where the owners were working in the venue and it was 24 seats. And at the time where we were, it was one of the only restaurants doing what it was doing. So yeah, it was great. It was a really huge learning curve, and I got to design menus and deal with suppliers and come up with retro deals, and like I just learned so much in that role at such a young age as well, because I'm still only like 22 by this point. So yeah, really fun, real learning curve. And then yeah, what happened after that?
Well, it's an absolute masterclass in like go after what you want, right? Like just be bold,
Yeah,
don't give up,
yeah.
don't take no for an answer. Do it in the right way. Obviously, there
Yeah.
are probably restraining orders that can be put in place for people who don't do it in the right way. But
Yeah, listen, if I really thought that it wasn't meant to be, I probably would have backed off, but I just felt like that was where I should have been at that point. And yeah, the general manager who took a chance on me, he's like trained me to the caliber that I think I am now, and he's still one of my closest friends in the world. And yeah, just a really awesome opportunity. So I loved it. It was great.
well,
And yeah, when I left there, it was to start up a dog walking business.
I mean, it's the next natural step.
I know, what else would you do?
Exactly.
Tell me you've got ADHD without telling me you've got ADHD. So so I stayed in hospitality the entire time that I ran it. But my only other passion, my other big passion is dogs. Like I just adore them, and I wanted a dog of my own, and that didn't really suit the lifestyle that I was living at that point. And yeah, I just came up with the idea to set up a dog walking company, and I did it. And yeah, alongside it, I worked in another restaurant in Chester called Upstairs at the Grill. Who my best friend was the GM at the time, and she just said, you can do as many hours as you need. Like if you need more full time, we need you. But if you just want to do like 10, 15, that's fine. So that worked really well. There was a lot of flexibility there, and it meant I get to keep my toe in hospitality whilst also starting my first business. So
And some dogs.
yeah, it was an exciting couple of years. It was exhausting. The first year, I was working Monday to Friday, like 9 to 5, walking dogs, and then like Wednesday to Sunday in the restaurant, just so that I had enough income. So it was exhausting but rewarding.
What's not rewarding about dogs?
I know, it was the best. And by the end of the first year, I was busy enough to have to employ a second person, and
Oh wow, right?
yeah, it was great.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, this now we're turning this into a dog walking podcast. We're advocating careers in hospitality, but dogs are amazing too. So
They are
dogs deserve
amazing.
your time.
As a side hustle, it's good fun. I
Yeah.
can't recommend it enough. But yeah, then I sold that business at the end of 2019 after moving to Liverpool. The commute and the driving was all a bit too much, so I decided to sell up. And with the money from the sale, I set up a catering company. So straight back into the deep end in hospo. Bought a food truck, and this was with my ex-partner, and we set up a little business called Alfalfa, which the idea was to do bespoke evening food at weddings. So rather than you just calling up, a pizza guy and they come and do pizzas, like it would be more designed to people's like specific wants. So how you would choose a menu for your wedding breakfast, you would also get to choose what kind of food you wanted served in the evening. And Yeah, set that up in January of 2020, so you can imagine how that went.
Good timing, yes. Yeah, everything was so alive at that point, and the thriving and open as well.
So open, so many
Yeah,
events happening. Yeah, so yeah, just sort of started to get, but well, we were looking like we were going to do quite well in year one, like better than we could have really projected for, and uh, everything shut down. So
yes.
yeah,
That
which
was the end of that. Did you basically
yeah,
just didn't have
well,
a choice?
I soldiered on. I soldiered on. I couldn't get furlough. I couldn't get bounce back loans because we were like only 3 months old, and I couldn't even get like universal credit. So I was like, well, I'm gonna have to do something. So
Mm.
I already had the events kitchen set up, which was in like the back section of my house. We already had the food truck, so I started to do home deliveries locally. I got like thousands of flyers printed, and my partner at the time and one of my friends just went around the entire area putting leaflets through people's doors, and it did okay. It was enough to start to bring me a little bit of cash in and keep me afloat, but obviously wasn't how I envisioned the business. So did that throughout the first lockdown. Then just out of the lockdown, we set up in the middle of the city centre alongside a pub because they didn't do food. And I don't know if you remember back in 2020, everyone had to serve food to get a drink. So it worked quite well, like with them. So we served the food, they served the alcohol. It was city centre, and that did really well. We'd already built a little social media following throughout the lockdown and got a little bit of like a cult, like people were interested in it. What I was serving, by the way, was fresh homemade pasta and grilled cheese sandwiches. So it was all like fresh every day. It was just me making it at home. And yeah, so did that just out of the second lockdown. Then Liverpool went back into a local lockdown, and then we came out of one, and then it was eat out to help out, which put me, how do I say this without swearing?
That's a good setup. The yes,
Yeah,
put you in a difficult position.
a very difficult position,
Right.
yes,
Yeah.
because I couldn't apply for for it for the help because we weren't old enough, and everyone all of a sudden was only eating Monday to Wednesday. So I went from being in a position where I could have taken somebody on full time to work alongside me to not being able to pay myself again in like overnight. So yeah,
You just
then
gotta love policymakers, haven't you? Yeah,
I
they really
know.
get it, understand it.
So yeah, then so at this point now we're in like August, and I've already pivoted the business like 4 times.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um,
Jeez.
we went back into a local lockdown in Liverpool, and I started doing home deliveries again and like posting pasta boxes to people. And in and out of all the, in and out of lockdowns, it came to December and I was just exhausted. And I said, I'm going to take the month off from this. I'm just going to go back to my old job, work for a month, like just take a breather and see how I feel in the new year. So during that time, I decided to go and work on yachts.
Once
So
again, I love this really linear, uniform direction that you have. But to be fair,
yeah,
like I jest, but in actual
yeah,
fact, this for me is one of the absolute joys of this industry. Notwithstanding, you've
yeah,
obviously dipped your toe out of the industry a little bit as well,
yeah,
but you clearly have a bit of entrepreneurial spirit, and that is usually centered around just get up and do something. That like
yeah.
if you said that you've got ADHD, I'd imagine part of that is making sure that you keep yourself busy doing stuff that just interests you and ignites you.
Yeah, it makes me a little bit risk averse. So when most people, might not make decisions like that, for me, I'm just like, well, what have I got to lose? And also, I think with all of the different, patterns of my career, it's given me such a wide scope for how far the industry can take you, and how much there is to do in different aspects of it. That's obviously the private sector. So I didn't work on charter yachts. I worked in private. So I was just working with one family, and I got to know them really well, and that opened up opportunities for me as well. And yeah, like it, yachting is a side of the industry that not a lot of people get into, but it's really incredible and rewarding, and paid well. It's difficult because you're away from home for a long time. So I think if you're naturally quite a homebody, you might find it difficult. But advice that I give to a lot of young people coming up in the industry is to go and give it a go, because you
Mm.
get to see the world, you get paid well, you can climb the career ladder really quickly in the industry, and you meet so many incredible people, and so many doors get opened for you. So I only know a handful of people in the industry, but everyone that has done it is having a really great, successful time. So if I'd have, I went into it at 27. So, and I went into, obviously, like I say, the private sector. So I could still go back and go into charter and stuff, but for me, being like the social butterfly that I am, I found the isolation quite difficult.
Right.
That being said, I did it for 2 years and I loved it. I'm not. It's not to say I wouldn't go back, but yeah, in terms of like an industry, like career opportunity, I would definitely advise young people to go and give it a go because
I
it's
echo
really,
that.
it's another world.
I mean, it's not quite the same world, but I started out my career on cruise ships, and it's a similar
Mm,
principle. Probably it has its pros and cons over
yeah,
yachting and vice versa, but the principle remains
yeah,
the same: is that you're working hard, surrounded by good people who want to do the same, surrounded by learning experiences like beyond anything. It's like life on steroids, and
yeah. You
and
can't even imagine the kinds of situations that come up.
yeah, yeah. Well, I've seen Below Deck. I can probably imagine.
Well, that's basically what. So in lockdown, I watched 8 seasons of Below Deck,
Right.
and I was like,
And that
I could do
and
that.
you still wanted to go on it. Wow, yeah,
Yeah, well, I had a little bit of inside knowledge, like people that I knew in the industry who say it's not quite like that. You know, sometimes
yeah.
it can be a bit like that, but it's not quite like that. So I had an idea of what I was going into, but yeah, it really is just an incredible opportunity. You work hard, it's long days with relentless, hours. But I think a lot of people in our industry are used to that anyway. So if
But
if
also
you're
you
not,
can't go anywhere, right? So you literally I definitely found this maybe because it's a younger person's game as well when I worked on ships, is
yeah,
that we worked every day, and probably the minimum hourage was 10. Most of the time you're working more than that. But because you're there and you don't have to worry about the commute, and you're surrounded
yeah,
by people who have got your back and vice versa, like it
yeah.
didn't ever feel like we were grafting that hard, just because the work was good, people were good, and then everything is possible after that.
Yeah, it's a hell of a lot of fun. And like you say, the long days, I think I was averaging about 14 to 16 hours a day. And some weeks you wouldn't get a day off, some weeks you would. But also during those hours, you are getting like downtime and like time to just have a laugh and hang out and like go for a swim, or there's lots of variables to those working hours. And like I say, like the experiences and the doors opened and the people met from the back of it are something that I would never have got otherwise. So yeah, I would
Yeah.
it was a really great experience. And yeah, then I stayed in the family's orbit for a little while, still am, and have a lovely relationship with them. And the opportunity, I've been to do a couple of like ad hoc bits of work for them in some other amazing places as well off the back of it. Yeah, then I came away from that and came back to England, came back to Liverpool. Was working at a restaurant in town just for a few months. Great restaurant. I wasn't feeling that my abilities were being sort of utilized there, was the only thing. So I went to for a sit down with an owner of another business in the city. Just said, I just need something for a few months while I'm figuring out my next steps. And he said, absolutely. And the next thing I know, I was general manager.
Of
It was
course.
it was a bit of a whirlwind situation. And I worked with them for I think about 18 months or so. A few months in, they gave me an area manager position, and so that was my first like step into that kind of middle management role. Yeah, now we're here.
Well, hang on a minute. Hang on a minute. You can't go from just being made general manager slash area manager, and now we're here, because it's not like nothing happened in between that. What I'm really interested to kind of learn about is, like, you're kind of back in the UK and back on a career path again, and then
Yeah,
something harebrained comes into your head around, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to go
yeah.
and walk around the
Walk
UK
around.
for a while.
Yeah. So actually, this idea had been brewing for a while, for like 3 years or so. It was whilst I was working in the private sector. I was working with the family down in Cornwall for a little while and did a section of the Cornish coast path, which I didn't even know was a thing. But I was just blown away with how beautiful it was and started to think to myself, oh, I wonder, like, how far this goes. So at the time, I was kind of in a, say, relationship with this country, and it was not great.
Yeah.
I'd been going away on the yachts quite a bit, and every time I came back, it felt quite heavy, and I'd really gotten to a point of just like not really wanting to be here, not wanting to have a base here, just feeling quite like, I don't know, dissociated from it, out of love with it. And it wasn't really like anything to do with, I guess, the country itself. It was just like the constant kind of 24-hour news cycle and not being able to turn anywhere without someone having a political argument, and the industry, like hospitality, feeling like it was just on its knees,
Mm.
and people not understanding the value of hospitality. And I just had become like, that I can't be here anymore. But when I walked that stretch of the Cornish coast that day, I was like, no, there is so much beauty here that we all forget about and forget to utilize and make the most of. So I started thinking about walking the Cornish coast path, and then that evolved into the Southwest coast path. And then as I was doing the research for that, I discovered that the English coast path was due to be completed last year, so 2024. And that happened to be the same year that I turned 30. I had struggled throughout my 20s with anxiety and panic attacks. And I wanted to, as I started to feel better towards my late 20s, I really wanted to like mark it in a big way, hitting 30 and like this sort of new chapter, and feeling well and understanding how to help myself and going through therapy and all sorts of stuff. I just wanted to like kind of close the door on that and move forwards with something big and stupid. And so I walked the entire English coast path.
Your words there are awesome. By the way, I wanted to close that chapter with something big, and for most people, that's like, I don't know. I'll go and rent a villa in Tuscany or something like that, and go and experience the wines of Tuscany and bring a few mates along, and then we'll close that
Yeah.
chapter. Yeah. So how the hell do you go from going, yeah, this coast is beautiful, and I agree with you, by the way. I've walked a bit of that myself. We
Yeah.
have a beagle, and she loves all of that stuff. So when I
Oh my
discovered that
gosh,
she's,
I had two beagles, two rescue
oh,
beagles.
did you?
I love them so
Oh,
much.
bless, they're
Yeah.
amazing,
Sorry,
amazing
off piste on the
things.
dogs again, but yeah, they're the
They
best.
keep you on your toes for sure. That's
Yeah.
where we discovered that actually she's got mountain goat like properties, the ability to jump and the ability to grip, and it's like, wow. But anyway, I digress. It's one thing to realize that while you're doing a section of a coastal path, and without question, especially if you catch it on a good day, weather-wise, like the beauty is just everywhere you look, right, at every direction.
Yeah.
But how? And then you move that up to being the southwest, and then
Yeah.
yeah, that's fine. But how do you go from that into do you know what? Let's just do all of the UK.
Well, I figured, well, so not the UK, I did the English coast path, so I have to
I
correct
beg your
that.
pardon.
I didn't do Scotland and Wales.
Holy
I get
cow!
asked a lot, will I add them on at some point? And the answer is I don't know. But I don't know. I think when my brain sort of packs onto an idea, it doesn't let it go. So I started talking about it like 3 years ago, and everyone that I spoke to was like, "That's stupid," and I was like, "But is it though? Because it's going to be the longest unbroken coastal path in the world when it's complete." And I thought that's actually just pretty cool. Like to be able to say that you've walked the longest unbroken coastal path in the world is like mega.
Mm.
So I latched onto the idea and started thinking about logistics. I was going to do it when I turned 30 in April 2024. I was going to take 6 months, which would have meant I would have to do roughly just under 15 miles a day, which felt manageable. And I would like to do it to raise money for a charity that meant something to me. There was a few charities actually in my mind to do that for in the lead up to me actually doing the walk, but the planning of the walk was separate from the raising money for charity. The walk idea came first, and the raising money for charity came second. So I was still just developing this idea, this big sort of solo adventure to, like I say, to mark a new chapter, but also to show myself after like years of struggling with anxiety that I could still do something on my own. I could do something completely independently without relying on other people for help. Probably spent my 20s quite codependently with partners, with my family, even with some friendships. And I wanted to just do something just for me, just by myself. So, yeah, obviously this idea developed. And as it developed, I started to think about what charities I might want to raise money for. And I landed on Hospitality Action after they helped me. We go back to when I had my catering business in COVID and I couldn't get furlough, I couldn't get bounce back loans, I couldn't even get universal credit, which at the time I think was only 300 quid a month anyway, but I couldn't even get that. So it was looking a bit dire for me whilst I figured out how to generate some money from the business. And yeah, I got the COVID grants that they announced. So obviously being like hospitality born and bred, like, and having them help me out when they did at one of my kind of lowest points, it made the most sense to reach out to them and see if they would like me to fundraise for them when I did the walk. So that only really came about in December of last year, because basically my idea for the walk happening when it did got delayed for two reasons. One, I had quite an unexpected change of living situation, which meant that I had to spend quite a big chunk of my savings. That was in the start of 2024. So financially, I was on the back foot again, and it came at the same time that I was offered a promotion in work. So it made sense for me to stay on, take the promotion, have my first experience in this kind of more senior management position, learn from that experience, but also spend the year being able to save that money back up that I just sort of had to put into a new living situation. So everything got delayed. And then actually, I couldn't finish my job until the end of May. So my birthday is at the start of April. So that all of a sudden took 2 months off of my walking schedule. So I went from having to walk just under 15 miles a day to just over 22 miles a day.
I mean, that takes the challenge up a notch for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I'm sure we'll talk about that in a second. But also, I don't know, you strike me as the sort of person who, like, you're not shy of trying stuff. Like your story tells me that you're willing to give it a crack. And so by applying that same logic into this, which is, it is a challenge, yes, but it's also, I'd imagine, part of the reason why you wanted to do something like this was for the experience, right? In terms of what it brings
Yeah.
to you is just a base human level, in terms of what you're experiencing and being present and in the moment and all of that kind of stuff, because
Yeah.
you're not having to think about let's just call it the drudgery of life,
Yeah.
in terms of that news cycle that you speak about, in terms of the
Yeah.
paying of bills, all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah. It was massively that. And also, like I say, the opportunity to just get to know myself on my own again. So it was that, like, I work hard and I put a lot of myself into work whenever I'm working, and so often to maybe the detriment of myself. But this was an opportunity to just be like, right, all I have to do every day is wake up and walk. So I can I can rearrange those thoughts in my head. I can quiet some of the self-doubt, and all I have to do is just do this. And if I can do that every day, and I'm making it sound like it's easy. It was not easy, but yeah. but yeah, it was. Yeah, it's hard now because the early thoughts of the challenge are like years ago, like nearly 4 years ago now.
Right.
So like actually thinking back to those first thoughts and thinking why I wanted to do it, it's quite hard to remember how they came about, but yeah, what it really developed to was something incredible. So I'm really glad that I did.
No doubt, no doubt. I think a lot of these things, they come from a seed of an idea somewhere that maybe sometimes your brain just parks in the background somewhere else, and then you
Yeah,
speak to somebody and they'll just say something that goes, oh, yeah, and then maybe that thing that I thought about 6 months ago could become this thing now because of what that person said, and so on
yeah,
and so forth. And all of a sudden, you start getting excited by the prospect of doing something like that. And I think equally, life is what it is, right? At the end of the day, we all kind of jump on the hamster wheel and just crack on as best we can. We're all kind of faking it really until We wake up one day and realize that actually, do you know what, experience is actually the most important thing, because
Yes.
we don't get very long to do this, really, in the grand scheme of
No.
things. So you might as well do stuff that ignites you and brings you some kind of peace or happiness or whatever. But 2,700 miles. I
Right.
am captivated and fascinated beyond words around logistics of, like, that's fine to have the idea. I get that. And especially, I
Yeah.
think maybe you and I are cut from the same cloth in some ways. Like, ideas are not my problem. They come often.
Yeah.
My problem is execution, when I get to a point whereby I'm like, oh, okay, oh, no, this now feels like it's too much like hard work to get to where I want to get to. And so pushing through to the point, I would imagine that planning logistics is maybe not your natural skill set.
No, definitely not. And I be honest, I went into it with rose-tinted glasses and didn't do anywhere near
That's
enough
great though.
logistical planning.
Yeah, but you see that right there, that's a great message in itself. Like naivety, right, is the greatest thing to have when you're attempting something new, because if you get
Yeah,
into your head about all the reasons why it's difficult and you shouldn't, then you
yeah.
just don't do it.
I think that's it. I think that a lot of other people had that mindset, and I just went, "I'd be fine.
Yeah.
Just gotta wake up and walk every day, I'll be fine." And I did do some research in as much as knowing that I would at least pass one village every day or town every day, or knowing that I was never more than 6 hours away from home if everything went Pete Tong. But I I don't know, I just thought if I've got all the equipment that I need and I don't injure myself, what else do I need?
What? I mean, yeah, you just need the desire to want to get up every day and go and walk 22 miles, right? Like,
And
you
I can
get
tell you right now that half of the time I didn't have that desire.
right.
Like, I there were periods on the path where I didn't wanna get up and walk one bit. I'd wake up some mornings and be like, "Oh, no, I've still got to walk." And other mornings I'd absolutely love it and bounce out of bed. Although I'm not naturally a morning person because having worked in the industry forever, you know, I clock on at midday and I clock out at midnight, and then I'm awake until 2, 3 in the morning. So most hikers are up and out first thing, crack of dawn, beating the hot weather, beating the light, etc., etc. Not me. I, I never came off that hospitality body clock. So yeah, I was generally starting at like 10ish every morning and finishing by like 8, which when I say that to just like people who, you know, hike normally and aren't
Normally.
fancy. I'd never done a multi-day hike before this. I'd I think the furthest I've ever hiked is like, I don't know, 7 or 8 hours for one day, and that's it. Like I've never camped, never multi-day hiked. I didn't do any training, physical training. People are like, God, you must be so fit. Before I started, and I was like, nope. I am very exercise averse. Otherwise, I don't like. I got a gym membership when I was 18, and I went once and said, no, this is not for me. I'm never going to go again. And I don't do like team sports. I like to surf, but I don't get to do a lot of that around here. So yeah, the physical aspect of it, I went into it stupidly.
5-star hospitality means having the right people in the right place at the right time, and that's exactly where RotaCloud can help. RotaCloud is the online platform that makes planning rotas, recording attendance, and managing annual leave easy. Its simple, drag-and-drop interface lets you create and share rotas with your team in minutes, while our built-in budgeting tools mean you'll know exactly how much you're spending on staffing before sending the rota out. RotaCloud also makes life easier for your staff, allowing them to check their rotas, request time off, and pick up extra shifts, all through the RotaCloud mobile app. Start your 30-day free trial today by visiting rotacloud.com/Phil and find out how much easier managing your team can be.
But
Yeah, I'm kind of learning this as we chat. I love that, but you know what? This is part of the experience, right? This is almost, this whole thing is almost like an actual showcase of what life is like.
yeah,
Is
yeah,
somebody probably got in your ear at some point as well and said, "Oh, if you're going to do that, you're going to have to do da 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 da, all that kind of stuff to get, to make sure you give yourself the best possible chance of success." And your
Yeah.
rose-tinted brain probably went, yeah, okay, whatever, and
Yeah,
then did
literally.
your own thing anyway.
My poor dad, bless him, I think he was quite stressed, but he was good. He was like, "Maya, you've not done any training, you've not done any research, you've not." I was just like, be fine, don't worry about it, I'll be fine." So yeah, the first few weeks were quite stressful for my poor dad, but after that, we got into a rhythm. I got into a rhythm, figured it out.
Yeah. Well, continuing on the logistics thing, how did you decide where you were going to start? And also, when you were talking about you talked about taking equipment with you and things like that. Were you camping out pretty much every night?
Yes, yes. So I was on a
Wow.
budget of £10 per day.
Right.
Um, yeah, so I was really, really fortunate to get a little bit of sponsorship from two businesses that I've worked with that helped me fund my equipment. So that was Bar Lounge in Chester, who I used to work for, and Caterite, who are a supplier up in the north. And they helped me fund my equipment. So my equipment was a tent, a backpack, everything you need inside the tent. So a sleeping mat, a sleeping bag, pillow, tiny little camping burner, one pan, some waterproofs, and some hiking boots. So that was pretty much everything apart from clothes and toiletries and stuff that I had with me. And I was on a budget of £10 a day. So the idea was that I would either wild camp or get free places to pitch my tent or stay for the night. So I set out on the 28th of May, but the 28th of May was local. So I've gone off from your question. So how did I decide where to start? It was very last minute, because initially the path is designed to be walked clockwise. So I was going to start at the Scottish border in the northeast, and just above Berwick-upon-Tweed, and I was going to finish at the Scottish border in the northwest at Gretna. And that had been the plan for 3 years. And then 2 weeks before I started, I thought I could just start and finish in Liverpool. Because then I get to like finish at home, my friends are nearby, everyone can come visit, and I can have a party at the end. So I was like, all right. So I switched it all around last minute and started from Liverpool. I headed over the Mersey and set out from Birkenhead. I'm pointing because I'm looking at where I set out from right now.
Right. I suppose that
So
makes
I
sense
set out,
logistically. You don't have to get there,
yeah,
right? I mean, you walk
exactly.
to the start line, basically.
Yes. Yeah. I set
Yeah.
out on May the 28th at Seacombe Ferryport in Birkenhead. And I did the Wirral Peninsula in one day. That was 23.7 miles, I think. And then my dad drove me down to the start point in the south. So the Welsh coast path joins the England coast path at Chester, and then it rejoins it at Orst, which is just north of Bristol. So my dad drove me down to Orst, and I set out from there on May the 29th. And yeah, then it was where do I stay tonight?
So was it
So
literally you're walking and you go, I've done my miles. That looks good. I'll do that.
no, so what I would do is the night before I would route plan, figure out where I was going to reach that night, and try and find somewhere to stay. So I had it in my head that I would wild camp a lot of the time, but my dad wasn't super on board with that idea. So I had this idea literally out of nowhere on the day while I was walking to go onto like local Facebook groups and see if anyone in that town, if I put a little call out saying, "This is what I'm doing. I'm due to reach your town tonight. Can anyone help me?" And I did that on the first day, and a pub called the Ship in Weston-super-Mare. This was the first day I was on my own, actually, because my dad stayed with me for one more night. My dad and my boyfriend stayed with me near Bristol. But anyway, first day on my own, they reached out and said, "Yeah, you can pitch in our garden, and we'll give you a couple of drinks or whatever." And I just had the most amazing time with them. It was the first time I'd ever put my tent up. I didn't even practice that. So it took me an hour to pitch my tent with the whole of the beer garden looking on. It was hilarious. But that night I sat in the pub with all the locals, got to know everyone. They all donated money to the cause. And I just had the best time. And I thought, this is it. I'm going to lean into this aspect of it. I'm raising money for hospitality. I'm going to lean on the hospitality of people and or hospitality businesses to get me around, to get me through this. So I used that method pretty much all the way around the country to find places to stay. And I think in total, I haven't properly sat and worked it out, but off memory, I think I only ended up paying for about 8 or 9 pitches in 120 days.
Wow.
So
Right.
yeah,
Yeah. I
so
mean, that in itself, right, is these are the sorts of headlines we need in the world. Like as a
yeah,
reminder of like how many amazing human beings there are out there doing stuff like this, which is, in the grand scheme of things, not that much, other than welcoming somebody into wherever they are. But look at what it allowed you to do something like this without, without planning, basically
yeah,
too far
yeah,
in advance. But you kind of go, where the hospitality takes you, kind of thing. God, that should have
yeah,
been in the marketing.
and it really highlighted that hospitality doesn't just stop when you leave a restaurant or bar. It is everywhere. Like I slept on people's sofas, I pitched up in people's gardens, I was given spare rooms, I was given meals, people came to bring me lunch boxes. Like I was shown hospitality from everyone every single day, like everywhere that I went. And there wasn't a single day that passed by where somebody didn't extend their hospitality to me in some way or another. And it wasn't always businesses, sometimes it was just people sat at home who saw my message and wanted to help. Yeah, I think the concept that hospitality is just businesses is lost on me at this point, because if you welcome someone into your home, make them dinner, give them a bed to sleep, even just make them a cup of tea, whatever it is, like that is hospitality. It's in everyone. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was huge. That's been my huge sort of takeaway from the whole experience, has been just the hospitality and kindness of everybody. And I didn't have a single conversation about politics or the news cycle, or I know it's important for us all to know what's happening in the world, and I'm not saying it isn't, but I don't think we're supposed to have that many bad things fed into our brains 24 hours a day.
Agreed.
I think we all forget to just connect with people on like a basic human level, just have a conversation about what is happening in our immediate vicinity. Does my neighbour need a hand pulling up the weeds? Does this person from a Facebook group need somewhere to stay tonight? Otherwise, their budget's out the window. And like, yeah, I've come away from it with a different view on the country and the people in it. So yeah,
Well,
it's
that was
been
going to
really
be one of my
positive.
questions, was centered around that, what you said earlier on about really kind of not really knowing or feeling whether this was going to be the right place for you, based around the heaviness of the country and what it can feel like sometimes to live here.
Yeah,
And that the question was then going to be, did this change your mind? It sounds like it definitely did.
yeah, it's really opened up my heart again to the fact that it's not all just sad. There has been some horrendous things that have happened whilst I've been away, inside and outside of this country. I'm not going to get into that, but having just like, I think on a basic level, all that people want to do is help and extend kindness, and that is what I've been shown. So yeah, it's been a real positive for me. It's been a real positive to take away from that, and I don't know where I'm going to end up. I'm planning a big traveling trip over the next few months.
You're going to
But
walk.
coming, no, no, done enough of that. Yeah, I'm going away for a little while. But I don't have such an aversion to coming back anymore.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Like, I mean, even that in itself, from your own personal perspective, is, without question, made it worthwhile. I'm sure there are many,
Yeah,
many other reasons why it was worthwhile as well. And there's
yeah,
definitely your wonderful outreaching reasons as well, from what this story has done from within hospitality itself, in terms of, more and more people, especially towards the back end of your walk. It felt like there was just a lot more chitter chatter about it, which is great. You've clearly raised the profile of hospitality action in the process as well, which is great. Given how little preparation work you did, there must be some stories then of times where you go, why didn't I just take 5 minutes to do that thing that now would make my life easier?
yeah. The first big thing
Daily.
was that I Yeah, I mean, there was a lot. The first big thing that comes to mind was that I just had too much stuff. I'm only small. I'm like 5'3". I don't weigh a lot, and like I say, I don't do a lot of exercise, so I don't have like the prior muscle mass to like carry all that weight, and and I overpacked basically. So just as I hit the Southwest Coast path, I was really fortunate that this lovely woman called Leslie had been helping me out for a couple of days, bringing me food and just being a general superstar. And I was on the phone to my dad in buckets of tears because I was like, I'd been walking on flat. There was no elevation from all the way around the Wirral, from Bristol to the start of the Southwest Coast path. There was just no elevation, and I was already struggling. Everything hurt. I was struggling to get my miles in, and I was like looking at the next day, and there was over 1,000 meters elevation per day for the next. I can't even explain how long. I didn't know how long, and I went, I can't do it. I'm not gonna be able to do that. So I took a serious look at everything in my bag and got rid of about 3 kilos worth of stuff. So at the time, my bag was probably weighing 18 kilos,
That's not
which
insignificant.
is
Not insignificant to have on you for hours and hours and hours at a time.
no, it was more than a third of my body weight, so it was it was a lot, and
Yeah, that's army training right there.
yeah. So I was on the phone to my dad in floods of tears, and he went, "I told you it was too heavy," and I went, "I know, but what am I going to do now?" And he said, "Right, tell Leslie if she's happy to take a load of your stuff off you and look after it. When I come and see you, I'll go and pick it up." And I went, "Thank you." So I got rid of everything. I got rid of shampoo, conditioner, moisturizer. I ditched as much as I physically could, as quickly as I physically could, and it helped. I was down to about 14.5 kilos at that point, so it was a massive drop. It still hurt, don't get me wrong, the bag is still uncomfortable. Anyone that tells you that hiking bag is comfortable, or they, whatever new ergonomic design they've come out with, they're a liar. Um, is it more comfortable than like a different bag? Maybe, but it still hurts. But yeah, that was like my first big issue that I ran into, and one that we still laugh about now because I was just so stupid to think that I could carry that much stuff. Um, yeah, a few of the little things. 2 days after that, I took quite a bad fall and sort of went. I had put the wrist holds on my hiking poles the wrong way without realizing. So
Right.
when I fell, I couldn't let them go to catch myself. So I was on a steep hill walking down, and I fell forward, so I had a long way to fall because I was on the hill,
Yeah.
and I couldn't get my hands out until the very last second. I still managed to hit my head, but just got my hand there. And I was in an area where I had no signal. I hadn't seen anyone for about 4 hours, and I was still a good hour and a half away from getting to the campsite I was heading for that night. So yeah, that was pretty stressful. I was very shaken by that.
I can imagine,
Um,
yeah.
and when I got when I got to the campsite that night, rather than just assessing how my hands needed to go into the holes, I just cut them off because I was like, I know what I'm like. I will not pay attention one day and I will do that exact same thing again. So I'm just going to cut them off.
To be clear,
Yeah.
you were talking about cutting the loops off, not your hands.
Yes. Not my
Yes.
hands.
No.
Definitely needed those.
Yeah. Yeah, but I suppose that these are the sorts of things you're never going to really know. I mean, maybe you might know if you did mountains of prep work, took loads of advice from loads of different people, but maybe equally if you did all of that, you don't end up doing it because you
No.
just you think, well, that all just sounds like a nightmare, to be honest. And
Get talked out of it or think yourself out of it.
yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
the lesson here is just do everything with rose tinted glasses and worry
Well,
about the outcome later.
I did do bits of I kind of knew what I was getting into. I just didn't know how difficult it was going to be. That's what I'd say.
Yeah,
I didn't realize how difficult it was going to be. I think, I've since over the last few months made friends with a guy called Owen Charnley, shout out. He's also in the industry, he's a chef, and he's walking from Azerbaijan to Rochdale currently. And he's done loads of multi-day hikes. He knows what he's doing. He's like the most at home when he's walking. He knows all the best apps. He knows all the best equipment. He knows all the tips and tricks. And we've spoke to each other every day for like months now, pretty much. And he was such a huge like guide and somebody to just bounce off, because I speak to my friends and my family, on a daily basis, but none of them really understood like what I was doing
Mm.
and how taxing it is and how boring it is some days. And like, you're on your own walking for 10 hours, you sometimes don't see anyone, you don't have any conversations, you're bored of listening to whatever podcast you've had on, you've run out of podcasts that you listen to, and you don't know what new ones to try. You need it can just be really monotonous. He is someone that has given me a lot of advice, and who, if I was going to do a big hike again, I would definitely speak to first, because he's got all the best tips.
Right.
And but he, he's done loads of them, and this one he's doing now is huge, like Azerbaijan to Rochdale, and to have to finish him. No, I'm joking. I'm sure Rochdale's a lovely place, but to go through all these amazing places and end up in Rochdale, it's like, oh man. But yeah, no, it's just, yeah, huge shout out to him. If anyone hasn't heard about his journey, then I would definitely recommend going to have a little look, because he's super cool and a fellow hospitality hero. So
Yeah. No doubt. I mean, well, look, I don't really know what to say, to be honest. I'm 100% in awe that you wanted to do this in the first place. I'm 110% in awe that you did this with next to no training or planning. That's otherworldly. But also, I love that as well, because I just kind of, probably some of the best stuff happens when you don't plan for it, right? I mean, you just let it be, let it happen. You learn along the way. You probably learn harder lessons, perhaps. But somebody once said
yeah,
to me that everything worth doing is usually a little bit difficult, and
yeah,
it sounds like it was a little bit difficult.
it was. Yeah, the front end of it I struggled with more so. Because then obviously with me having switch which way around I did hit the Southwest Coast Path on day 7, and the whole that section, it's 630 miles, and it has the same elevation as climbing up Mount Everest 4 times.
Oy, yay, yay.
So on the back of no training and with my weight, and then going into this like savage elevation every day, I didn't manage to hit my mileage a lot of the time. So that meant that when I got to the end of the Southwest Coast Path, I had miles to catch up on in order to stay on target. So I loved the Southwest Coast Path. It was beautiful. And, I think anyone who's been to that part of the world will attest to how incredible it is. However, it was really difficult and really hard going and exhausting. And I was still trying to post a video every day and keep everyone up to date. And I kind of just felt like I had no minutes in the day to just rest or chill or be me. So then coming out the back of it, I was about 100 miles behind on my target. I think maybe less, but let's just call it 100 because it's, round. But so then I had this like real anxiety of, where am I going to catch that up? How am I going to catch that up? What am I going to do? And I started putting a lot of pressure on myself, and it was all self-inflicted, but I felt all these like anxious feelings coming back, and I had to really sit with myself and be like, okay, what is more important here, like finishing on time or doing it in a way that feels true to you? So yeah, I took my foot off the gas with like posting stuff on social media. A couple of my videos really early on like just went sort of semi-viral, so I had this like following of people that I didn't know all of a sudden, who were in like constant contact with me and who were so supportive and amazing. But it was like another world. I wasn't used to having like 100 direct messages in a day, or lots of comments on my posts, or all these views, and I felt like this pressure to sort of keep up with everyone, keep up with everything, which is a nice problem to have, because everyone was amazing and the donations came in and the support was amazing, and everyone luckily was really friendly. I didn't really get that much hate or like, shtick online, which I think is quite rare. But it was like this pressure that I was putting on myself to keep on top of it all. So yeah, I had to really address like, okay, what are my priorities here? How do I make sure that I'm well and happy? And so yeah, I took my foot off the gas with the social media, and I sort of just tried to focus on the walking every day and the people in my immediate vicinity, and connecting with the people who were putting me up and helping me out, and that was a real turning point then. And I did manage to catch up miles. Some days it would just be half a mile extra, some days it would be 1 mile. And then I'm really grateful and lucky to have my dad be such a huge support, because he came for 8 days and camped, bless him, for 8 days out of his car, took my pack for me while I walked. And it meant that I could do sort of 30 plus miles a day for 8 days. And that caught me up on a huge chunk of the miles. It was tough going and I was exhausted, but we did it. And it meant that I think it was like 60 or 65 miles that I managed to catch up in like one chunk. So it took the pressure off for the rest of it. And yeah, I actually ended up being slightly ahead of schedule, reaching the Scottish border. And I can't even I don't even know how we got to that point, because I was so stressed when I was on the south coast about getting anywhere. But yeah, it all worked out. So
Right, right. Do you have a favorite piece of the coastline that really just blew you away?
I so naturally the Southwest Coast Path is beautiful. There's a lot to be said for it, but it's the place that gets all of the attention. So I'd like to highlight some of the other places that I don't think get enough attention. The North York Moors were incredible, absolutely beautiful. Most people probably associate the moors with the national park, which is mainly inland, but the whole thing borders the coast. So from Scarborough all the way up to Middlesbrough. I think it finishes just before
Right.
Middlesbrough, Redcar, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah,
All the
yeah.
way up there, yeah, is just like breathtaking. And it's full of northerners who are my people. And it didn't cost me £7 to buy a pint. It cost me like
Yeah.
£3.80.
Especially if you've got a
Um,
£10 a day allowance. I mean, that's not a lot left for actual food, is it?
exactly. And it was nice to be in the north, in a place that I think is not celebrated enough. And honestly, from that point up, it stayed stunning. It was just beautiful all the way up Northumberland, around Holy Island. Yeah, it was gorgeous. And I finally saw seals at Holy Island as well, so that was a massive
Oh,
highlight for me,
nice.
because I walked for, I think I was on what day, 103, 101, when I saw seals for like my first sea mammal of the whole thing, despite walking along the sea for 100 days. So yeah, that was really cool. I would say that's a part of the country that I will be going back to as quickly as possible.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to release that section on Northumberland because I'm fully aware my folks live up that way, and it
They like
is
to keep it a
yeah,
secret.
shh. It is. I think it's the most stunning section of coastline in the
Yeah,
UK. And as you say, everybody talks
it's
about
really
the
special.
southwest, but the
Yeah.
northeast. Whoa, yeah,
I would argue that the Northeast has got as beautiful a coastline at a fraction of the price, and the walking is marginally less difficult. It's not easy, but it's less difficult. So yeah, I think it's
yeah.
got a lot to be said for it.
Can't move for castles on the coast on the
Cannot
north.
move castles. No, and like beautiful churches, amazing people, decent cups of tea. Oh God,
Oh,
yeah.
northern cups of tea. Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, not to be sniffed at. Like I say, affordable pints and like, yeah, I do feel more at home with northern people, so it was nice to be. And that was really because the whole of the south section, trying to think now how many days it was. It took up it The south is so much bigger than the north.
Yeah,
And like it doesn't really compute when you look at it on a map. You're like, oh yeah, like bit bigger, whatever. It took me forever, it felt like, to get to the north again. But I felt like by the time I was at sort of Scarborough, which was the northeast, I felt like I was basically finished. I
right.
was like, oh, I'm nearly done. But yeah, crazy. And as well, because like the southeast is a lot more industrial, lots more towns. Obviously, there's a lot of ports and comings and go, that kind of thing. Like it it was so contrast to the southwest, which is like you could not see anyone for a whole day, and then all of a sudden you're village, town, port. Just back to back to back.
Mm.
So much more industrial, and then the marshlands of like Kent and Essex, which are just so flat and feel like you've only seen one view for an entire day. And then the wash around Norfolk as well. That took like 3 days, and I was just getting eaten alive by bugs, and there was nowhere to stay. There was barely any public transport, and it was like, oh god. And then all of a sudden, it was just like boom. North York Moors, like, oh, hello, yes, here we go. Like,
It also showcases like the diversity of the coastline, right? I mean, the
yeah.
England has a lot of coastline, 2,700 miles of it apparently, and the nuance and difference from place to place is quite magnificent.
Yeah, it's so different, so much variation. And although the coast path is 2,700 miles, I would say a lot of that is estuaries. And they were my least favourite things because you walk down the river on one side, you walk back up it on the other side. There's
Yeah,
no variation in what you're seeing. And sometimes it would take more than a day to get around one. So that part of it was definitely my least favourite aspect. Not to say these estuaries aren't incredible, it's just when you're like walking for so long and it, it feels a bit monotonous. So the actual coast line is probably less because if you don't take into account the rivers. But yeah, it is so varied. I mean, the dizzying heights of the Southwest Coast Path versus not walking up even a minor hill or even a set of stairs throughout like the southeast.
yeah,
It's weird.
yeah.
It's really odd.
No, no doubt. And well, look, are you still fundraising? Is it still open?
Yes.
Yep.
It's still live, yeah. So I'm having a little bit of R&R for a couple of days.
I mean, that's
And
probably
then
fair. You literally just got back on Saturday, and we're recording on Monday. Is that
yeah.
is that right? Saturday to Monday with your hangover
Yeah,
day
so
yesterday.
I finished at 4 o'clock on Saturday on Liverpool docks and had the welcoming committee there and went straight into my party. So I had like a finish line party. So it was a long day. Don't think we I think we got in at like 2 a.m. and then
God, how many
yesterday
miles
was
did you
pretty
walk that day on Saturday?
not as many, to be fair, not as many. So I had managed to get myself ahead. I was planning to get to Formby on Friday night, and I managed to get to Crosby. So for those who are not au fait with the geography, I was only about 16 kilometers away. So I
Right.
was used to walking 36 kilometers, and I only had to do 16, so it
Ah,
wasn't so
it's
bad.
easy day.
And light work.
Yeah.
But it was right in the middle of Storm Amy.
Oh, great. Yeah, of course. Nice.
So my last 2 days, Friday and Saturday, were the worst 2 days weather I've had on the whole thing.
Right.
It was insane. I was so lucky. I think if I'd done this walk last year when I planned, I would have had a terrible, terrible time
Well, it's a bit
because we had
wetter. That's
the
right.
wettest summer. And this summer has been dry and sunny. And I'm a proper like I will chase the sun around the globe happily. I could quite happily never have winter again. So for me, it was perfect. People were like, "God, you must be so hot," and I was like, "What? This is amazing."
Yeah, absolutely. I
So
couldn't agree
yeah,
more.
I got so lucky with the weather. I had like right at the beginning, I had like 3 days of rain, and then it did not rain on me walking once until September. It was
That's
mad.
mad. That is
It was mad.
incredible. Yeah.
I had yeah. I actually to the point where I actually sent my waterproofs and my walking boots back with my dad because I was like, I'm just carrying these for no
I'm
reason.
gonna need them.
And when I eventually need them, you can just post them to me because it's so dry. The land was so dry everywhere to the point where I was like, surely this is gonna, this is not good. Like there's gonna be wildfires and stuff because everywhere was so dry. But yeah, it was in terms of like weather, no complaints from me
Mm, yeah.
apart from the last 2 days.
Well, yeah, indeed. It's almost like a reminder. Oh, you're back now. You're back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
welcome home.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Wicked.
walking through Southport in Storm Amy, I had to change my clothes twice because I was so wet. It was
Oh
awful.
God, what an end to that. Got so close as well. So close.
I know, I know.
Yeah. Well, look, I for one, you've made a massive fan out of me. I think what you've done is quite remarkable, but for all the reasons that you've done it as well, like not obviously to raise money and awareness for hospitality action, but also just for yourself, and to close that tough chapter of your life behind you, and hopefully open
Yeah,
a new one ahead. I think it's just a wonderful thing to be able to do, and so I'd take my hat off to you. I'll put the links in the show notes as to how people can still donate. And yeah, wish you all the
I
very
just want to say
best.
as well. Just want to say, Hospitality Action have also been a massive support all the way throughout this. Obviously, I know that I'm raising money for them, but I've had a group chat going with Juliana and Jeremy all the way through. Amanda, who is one of their Southwest ambassadors, has just been the most incredible human being all the way through this. Like, everyone who is involved in that charity has just got the biggest hearts, and all they want to do is help people in our industry, which I think right now there's not a lot of people trying to do that. We're in one of the hardest times the industry's ever faced, and it can feel like zero support comes from the government. And I think Hospitality Action are pretty much the only people out there who are just looking out for the individuals working in the industry. So yeah, if anyone is listening, if you need help with anything, if it's mental health problems, if you're struggling to pay your bills, if you're thinking about retraining, if you've had an unexpected grief, if just whatever it is, like, even if you don't think they might be able to help, please reach out to them, because they're amazing and they will do everything they can to support you.
Here. I mean, they're the nicest bunch of people I think that might exist on the planet Earth are all in that organisation. But also, I think the key point there is even if they don't have the resource or ability to help, they're going to still be able to help in terms of pointing you in the right direction or whatever. So yeah, got a really important message, which I nearly forgot to say. So yeah, totally. Nothing else to say really, other than, I mean, I kind of want to stand up and give you a standing ovation, but I'm wearing shorts, so I'm not going to do that. Nobody needs to see that.
Thank you.
I wish you all the very best with whatever the next chapter is. Everything's going to feel a bit surreal for a while, I would imagine, now that you're not having to get up and walk.
Yeah, do you know what? It's a weird one, because I've taken so much away from the whole experience, but it isn't like I've gotten to the end and had this big epiphany. And I think a lot of people are like, oh, it's really gonna hit you when you finish, and but I don't think that's been the case for me. I think it's been a slow and steady, like, just appreciation and learning and just valuing it as it's been happening. So I'm so happy to be home. I can't wait to see all my friends and just do all my normal life stuff. And I've got some, like I say, some travel plans coming up. So yeah, I don't know. There hasn't been this this big end epiphany for me. Maybe it'll come. I don't know. But right now, I'm just really content with not walking every day. So.
Yeah, I can't imagine why that is. Yeah, awesome. Look, thank you so much for spending time so quickly after getting back as well. I can imagine that the whole world wants a piece of you right now, in terms of just, family, friends, the whole lot will just want time with you. So I appreciate you taking time out to chat to me today.
Not at all. Thank you so much for having me.
You're absolutely welcome, and wish you all the very best with the next chapter.
Cheers.
And there we have it. 2,700 miles, £10 a day, and one truly brilliant human. Huge thanks to Maya for proving that sometimes the best ideas are slightly ridiculous ones. And don't forget to check out Hospitality Action and the Walk for Wellbeing campaign. Links are in the show notes. Catch you next time. Until then, stay kind, stay curious, and keep those conversations going.